The Demon Princes of the Abyss are some of the most popular boss targets in D&D. This week on LoreDrop, I'm discussing one of the most difficult demon princes to run correctly, the Demon Prince of Deception, Fraz-Urb'luu, and how you can do him justice when you put him in your campaign. Hello players and GMs, I am Reese and welcome to another video by Jetpack7. Before we get started, I just want to remind you to like this video if you like the idea, as well as commenting, subscribing, and clicking the notification bell. I really enjoy the lore of Dungeons & Dragons because it helps with crafting narratives inside my games, so I wanted to start covering the lore of some of my favorite creatures and D&D related things. I may not limit this to in-game stuff, but also some of the game ideas like the invention of D&D and the history of the creators, stuff like that. So if you like this kind of content, let me know by liking the video and subscribing to the channel, and I will start making more of these types of videos. This week, I wanted to talk a little bit about my personal favorite demon prince, Fraz-Urb'luu. Fraz is a difficult one to run, because if he's done correctly, he's not going to be a standard beat-em-up encounter. As you can see here, Fraz's stat block isn't anything crazy compared to some of the stat blocks for the other demon princes, and as his title would suggest, his power doesn't come from his ability to fight, but rather his ability to run long-form deceptions that can wreak havoc on a party's mental state. But to truly understand the kind of long con this Prince of Demons can run, we have to look back into his past and what's been written about him already. So let's start somewhere simple, where he first made his appearance in 5th edition, Out of the Abyss. Fraz is described as a great gargoyle, some 12 feet tall, with an extended muscular neck and a smiling face framed by long, pointed ears and lank, dark hair, and bat-like wings furled against his powerful shoulders. That's his true form, at least. He's also prone to taking the form of another creature through his ability to use Alter Self, which specifically allows him to become a medium creature. There is also a very important sentence right after this. Often, the Demon Lord becomes so immersed in playing a role that he loses himself in it for a time. Why is that important? This means that if Fraz meets the party while in an altered form, he genuinely believes that he is that creature, meaning he isn't lying if they ask him to tell the truth. This can be a vital aspect of his deceptions. Not even Zone of Truth could see through that lie because even the person speaking fully believes that they are telling the truth. This allows Fraz to be present throughout the campaign, right under the party's nose for as long as you'd like, and there's almost no way for the party to know for sure. The next paragraph states that cultists of Fraz often don't even believe they are following Fraz, but rather some other minor god or beneficent being, or even another demon prince. He takes extra satisfaction in watching his followers unknowingly commit atrocities in his name, especially if he is able to turn them against the followers of another demon prince. So this is all good information and stuff we can definitely use in our campaign, but it definitely isn't as much as I'd like to have for running a complex boss in a long-form narrative. So let's dive even deeper. Fraz-Urb'luu was one of the very first demon princes, and also originally one of the most powerful beings in existence. He was one of the first demons to claim rule over an entire layer of the Abyss. His home was the 176th layer called Hollow's Heart. While he was in this layer, he was nearly unstoppable even at the hands of the other demon princes. He had power bordering on that of a god, due in large part to a staff in his possession, which allowed him to shape the land to his will and command several hordes of demons. Apparently, he made a habit of summoning the other demon princes to his lair just to taunt them before sending them back to their home lair. He did this mostly to princes he hated the most, like Grozd and Demogorgon. Now, this obviously began to draw the ire of many of the demon princes, and they began doing everything they could to drive him from his home and part him from his power, but of course, due to his overwhelming power from the staff, they repeatedly failed. Enter humanoids, specifically an archmage named Zagig and his apprentice Igwilv. As a disclaimer, we're talking about demons and stuff here, so I'm going to mispronounce some names, so just be ready for that, if it hasn't already happened. Zagig and Igwilv were natives of Oerth, which is the planet on which Greyhawk takes place, the Greyhawk equivalent of Toril, basically. It's Earth, it's essentially just Earth. Zagig wanted to summon Fraz-Urb'luu to capture him, but he needed help. So he went to the only people who wanted Fraz-Urb'luu gone more than himself, the other demon princes, namely Orcus, the Prince of Undeath. Through this contract, the interested party of Demon Prince betrayers granted Zagig a weapon of magnificent, destructive power, the Ichor Lance. Zagig and Igwilv summoned Fraz to the Prime Material Plane, and Fraz accepted, hoping to take advantage of this opportunity and gain some power over the Material Plane. That said, he knew of Zagig's true intentions and that the other Demon Princes had conspired to aid the wizard by providing a powerful artifact. So, upon arriving in the Material Plane, Fraz attempted to seize the Ichor Lance and use his power to destroy it, but it was in that moment that the deceiver became the deceived. The Ichor Lance was not a weapon intended to hurt Fraz, rather a trap intended to weaken him. Upon being destroyed, the Ichor Lance removed Fraz's power, allowing Zagig to swiftly imprison the Demon Prince in a boss relief in the dungeon beneath Castle Greyhawk. The Demon Princes took his staff and hid it away so that he may never find it and achieve power that had once proven so troublesome for them. And, once again, enter humanoids. The Demon Prince of Deception continued to deceive despite the fact that he was essentially a disembodied face in a dungeon. He worked his magic on a couple humanoids named Yellerark, played by Mark Ratner, one of the people in Gary Gygax's campaign, and Arak's cousin, played by Ernie Gygax, one of his sons. Yes, his name was Arak's cousin. He apparently never revealed the name, but had previously played a character named Arak and then just brought his cousin and stuck with the title. D&D may be ever-changing, but the players will always remain so consistently the same. There aren't many details on how they freed them, but they did, and allowed Fraz to return to his home plane of Hollow's Heart. He's certainly been weakened, however, as he has no clue about the location of his staff, and that is where he remains in the present. Out of the Abyss happens too, but it doesn't really mean anything for Fraz in particular. If you played the module, you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, that's where Fraz is now, in Hollow's Heart, constantly searching for some sign as to where the Demon Princes may have hidden his staff, so that he may once again achieve near godhood. That is essentially everything we know of Fraz's history and lore. I love this story because it is wrapped up in so much deception and subterfuge, and also lends a lot of credence to Fraz's power. The fact that the Demon Princes had to actually work together, which they hate doing, and they needed the aid of humans, which they hate doing even more, just to lock him away for a little while, is a huge testament to his threat and power. And that is exactly the kind of stuff the party should have to do to take him down if you run a campaign with Fraz as a big bad. So, here are some of my thoughts on how to do that well. If you're running a campaign with Fraz in it and he isn't the final boss, you better have something very serious waiting for your party at the end of the game, because this guy is an absolute master of crafting horrifyingly complex narratives and dangerous narratives. He makes an incredible campaign ender because of the fact that any scheme that involves him will be complex and potentially last for a very, very long time. Your players will have the opportunity to play through several arcs of a campaign and slowly start to connect each of the narratives as they uncover pieces of Fraz's puzzle. If you want, these schemes can be political and controlled, or you can really lean into the chaotic aspect of demons and cause dissent and warfare. It doesn't need to be an intrigue-based campaign at all, because demons love a healthy dose of chaos and destruction, so feel free to have plenty of combat for the characters to get wrapped up in. All that said, Fraz is a difficult villain to have in a campaign for a reason that pretty much comes down to basic creative writing. A good villain in any story is one that is introduced relatively early on, someone the protagonists know about, whether they know they're a villain or not. This allows the audience to form a connection with that villain, giving them an actual reason to want that character to be defeated. The difficulty with Fraz is that he doesn't want to reveal himself until the very last possible second. So to get a satisfying arc to the campaign without giving away Fraz's identity, the best way to do it, in my opinion, is to leave space at the top. What I mean is that throughout the campaign, drop hints that there is connection between certain events. Something or someone seems to have their hand in everything that is drawing the party from place to place. Once they've started discussing the possibility of a ringleader, start dropping small hints about who it is. The players discover a book about the Abyss, maybe they run into a couple weaker demons that have somehow made their way to the material plane. Allow these hints to slowly scale in size, and eventually point the party at the inevitable truth that Fraz is in fact at the very top. Leave a series of strings that only reveal who they lead to when all the strings have been uncovered. This should happen somewhere in the latter half of the campaign, maybe nearer to the end, so that there's at least a significant enough portion of the campaign where the players know about Fraz to make the final confrontation feel satisfying and rewarding. Remember to take full advantage of Fraz's ability to sink into a character. he can transform into an NPC not only physically, but mentally. He will literally convince himself that he is that character, so take advantage of this by having the players run into the NPC early on. Whether they're significant or not is up to you, but generally speaking, he probably will want to be in a place where he can pull strings without drawing too much attention to himself. In my campaign, I had him as the advisor to a monarch character who was one of the first characters the players met at the beginning of the campaign. You do want to be careful here though. I would avoid making it a character in anyone's backstory, because that may just feel kind of bad as a player to have your backstory unknowingly manipulated like that. Doing this correctly will create a moment when your players start to suspect everyone around them once they've uncovered some of the facts, but they'll have nearly no way to certify who is or is not Fraz, and it usually leads to some pretty hilarious speculation. Make sure you make it clear to the party that it is not any of their characters, because you're not a cruel DM. You may not have to, but I can imagine that would be a pretty unfortunate in-party fight if they started to suspect another PC. Now, let's talk about how the players may encounter Fraz. You have to keep in mind that Fraz isn't just smart. He is one of the most intelligent, most evil creatures in existence. He is ruthless, chaotic, and brutally tactical. Not only that, if you introduced him as an NPC early on, he knows the party, and he knows them very well. And likely, he knows how they fight, their strengths and weaknesses, and exactly how to exploit them, not only physically, but mentally and emotionally. Fraz loves putting creatures through moral conundrums, so don't be afraid to toss out some dark, twisted situations where the party has to choose between one bad thing or another. And in the final confrontation, play around with the idea that Fraz himself isn't a beast of raw power. Sure, he can hit hard, and his lair allows him to make a simulacrum of literally anyone else in the lair, which is really, really ridiculous, but compared to the other princes, he isn't particularly potent in terms of raw combat power. So what would he do to make himself deadlier? Surround himself with fanatics, slaves, servants, whoever he can to overwhelm the party. They can be fodder, or they can be significantly powerful creatures like manipulated clerics or power-hungry wizards. He should surround himself with people that the party will struggle with. A mage-slaying assassin targeting the casters of the party, a powerful wizard locking down the damage dealers, even a powerful healer healing Fraz throughout the fight. Fraz's primary strength lies in the influence of his intelligence and charisma. The webs he weaves are intended to trap adventurers and pit them against one another, so take full advantage of that fact and put your party against another eviler adventuring party, or one that's been manipulated and deceived. It's up to you. Either way, his minions should greatly increase the difficulty of his encounter, while he does his best with the simpler tools he is given in his stat block. Overall, Fraz-Urb'luu is an amazing boss with a colorful lore that will surely make for an incredible campaign-ending boss, while also allowing you to craft a complex narrative to give your campaign a solid and satisfying through line. Using him well will result in an amazing payoff, while using him poorly will likely leave an underwhelming feeling with you and your players. I hope this video helped you out. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are on Fraz-Urb'luu and what lore you'd like me to talk about next. If you liked this video, please remember to like it and subscribe to the channel, and as always, thank you very, very much for watching, and I'll see you all around.